So, big warm welcome to all of you. Welcome back after Easter and to our first post-Easter Tricia talk. And this is something we're going to carry on doing every Tuesday. So I hope that's something to put in your diaries and look forward to. And today we've got a real pleasure. So a Super Trooper called Lesley Day, who you may have noticed on Super Troopers, and she contacted me some while ago and we had a chat, and she's basically what could you say? Would you say maybe a bit of a pioneer, being the very first lady master of Livery Company, which is used to be one of the old guilds. Now you can tell from the way that I'm introducing her that I know nothing about this subject, but what I was fascinated to find out when I did talk to Lesley was the fact that these livery companies have existed for 600 years, and it's only very, very recently that they've allowed women to take the kind of role that Lesley takes within the company. So I want to find out all about that. So my first question to you, Lesley, is this is always for context, really. So tell us a little bit about yourself before you come on to the subject of you as this lady master, is what you're called.
Okay, well, hello everybody. I'm Lesley, come from a fairly normal family based up in Warwickshire. I had a fairly normal childhood until I was 10 years old, when we went to live in Brazil for 5 years. Because my dad was an engineer, and back in the 60s, they were trying to open up South America as a potential market. So then life became slightly unusual. I went to a British school. Many of my teachers had escaped Eastern Europe pre-war, and my fellow students were from all over the world. And I saw poverty at a very young age, which had an effect on me. And I decided that as I grew older, I had to do something about it, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So we came back to the UK when I was 15. So I missed out on the Beatles and all that stuff that you guys all enjoyed, but that didn't matter. And then I got back to normal lifestyle, and I ended up working in a trade association. It wasn't the plan. Originally, I was going to join the Foreign Office and go and see the world, but things don't always turn out like that. And I ended up working in the construction industry, and ultimately I became had a wonderful title of the Executive Officer of the Tile Association, which is a trade association that represents the wall and floor tile industry. Now, I didn't realize at the time, but there are thousands of trade associations out there. You will all have heard of APTA, you will have heard of the CBI and other organizations, but there are small ones as well for every industry. And it was through there that I worked my way up and became very much involved in training and education for people who worked in the construction industry, writing technical standards on how to make and fix wall and floor tiles. And it was at that time that I was then introduced to a livery company. So I think it might be a little bit useful to talk about the history of livery, what a livery company is, which is intertwined with history going back to medieval times, particularly in Northern Europe. Originally, there were guilds, which became livery companies. And if you were in the city of London or in Paris or Winchester, York, the medieval cities in Northern Europe, and you were a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, in order for you to work, you had to be a member of a livery company. And their role was to maintain standards. They had wage agreements for the people who worked with them. They trained up the next generation of craftsmen. They also were very involved in helping other people in whichever way they could. And also there was a great deal of fellowship at that time. They all had a livery hall, and back in medieval times, there were almost 100 livery halls in the city of London. You'll notice I keep saying the city of London. And the reason I say that is go back to Roman times. The city of London was started off by the Romans following their invasion. And at that time, the rest of London didn't really exist. There was Westminster where they built the cathedral. And over time, as the villages in and around London gradually got closer and closer to the city. But so that all became one. But the City of London has its own government, it has its own police force, it has its own Lord Mayor, which leads on to things like the Lord Mayor Show, which some of you will have seen on the TV or even been able to visit over in November when it's held every year. So that's briefly what a livery company is.
So in medieval times, if you didn't belong to a livery company, could you still work?
Not really. From our own company's history, it looks like you had to become a member of a livery company in order to work. And for every trade, there was a livery company, particularly, I'm going to say London, Winchester, York, cities like that.
Yeah.
So we had bricklayers, we had roofers, and we had tilers in our company, and very much involved in the building of properties in and around the city itself.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about your livery company, the one that you now very much represent.
I'm a member of the Worshipful Company of Tilers and Bricklayers, and its first recorded master was back in 1416, although records show that it was around before then. And it was a very active company in the city for obvious reasons, because it did an awful lot of building work. And all was fine up until the Great Fire of London, which destroyed huge parts of the city. And our livery hall at the time was built of bricks and mortar, so our historical records survived, whereas many of the other halls lost absolutely everything. And which was fine for us. But after the Great Fire, the King decreed that all new buildings in the city had to be built of fire-resistant materials. And you do think that would be great for our livery company, but we just didn't have enough labour to rebuild the city. And so labour would come in from all around the south of England and further north. And that was the point at which we lost our monopoly in the city. Having said that, we still, even to this day, are very much involved in the construction industry. We support our trade associations who work in the sectors. We provide prizes to trainees who are coming through the colleges. We have prizes for special projects, which we do once every 3 years. And there are architectural prizes for buildings in and around the southeast that merit such awards. We work with a related member of the armed forces, which in our case are the Royal Engineers. We support the Army Cadets, provide prizes for them. We support the Army Cadets annual day at the Royal Engineers Training Centre in Chatham. And when I was master, I had great fun going down there for the day to see the youngsters doing bricklaying. And we sponsored a competition, and I was really pleased that the winners were from Sevenoaks School, and they were all girls, so well done, girls. And now we still do a lot of charity work, and we have we have a religious connection. We all go to St Paul's Cathedral several times a year. We support the Lord Mayor and the sheriffs. I had the great joy of taking part in the Shrove Tuesday pancake races for charity, and thankfully I didn't come last.
So you keep saying we. How did you actually get involved with this whole thing? It's amazing.
Yeah, it was through work. The livery the Tilers and Bricklayers Company contacted me when I was in my work, saying that they wanted to wanted to bring back master craftsmen, a status for the elite in the three crafts of roofing, tiling and bricklaying. And together the trade body worked with the Livery Company to write the criteria and bring the master craftsmen back into existence. And every year now we hope to provide master craftsman certificates to tilers and bricklayers and roofers, and they are the elite. When I was master, I had the great pleasure of providing a lady called Emma, who works at Hampton Court Palace with her master craftsmanship in bricklaying. And if any of you ever get to go and see Hampton Court Palace, you can see her work. She works on all the chimneys, restores and rebuilds them, in fact. And part of her role also is to train the next generation of bricklayers who are coming through.
And you became the first lady master, which is, so you obviously were called the lady master, not the mistress.
No, no, it's historically all the people who are I suppose the chairman of these organisations were and still are called masters, and yeah, I would have hated to be called a mistress. In fact, once or twice at the dinners we held, I did refer to my husband as my mistress, much to everybody's hilarity. But no, the title is master, and it was, for me, it was a huge honour, and also very daunting, because when you think back over 600 years, to be the first lady. It was actually quite frightening to begin with. I thought about it, and I talked it over with my husband and my family, and they just said, I don't know what you're thinking about, just go for it. You'll have a fantastic time. And so I said yes when I was asked.
Wow. And I'm assuming that given that all of this has been going on for the last 600 years, that there's a huge amount of tradition and, you know, protocol
yes.
involved in all of this. So tell us a little bit about that, because you know, do you have to wear special clothes? You know, did you dress up? Do you get to wear a great hat or anything like that with a feather? Well, I'm thinking hat with a feather.
Well, I had an Elizabethan bonnet, which I used to wear on occasion, but I had a gown which was very heavy and very warm. But it's part of the tradition that the masters and also their wardens, who are the next in line, all wear gowns. And if anybody ever gets a chance to visit the Lord Mayor's show, you'll see lots of people wearing gowns and special hats and so on. So, and the Lord Mayor's show is historically, again, another bit of useless information. When the Lord Mayor of London was appointed, he had to go and swear allegiance to the king or the queen of the time. And it was done by procession from the city up to Westminster. And there was a big parade, even, you know, Elizabethan times, all the way through history. And then ultimately it became just a procession around the city of London itself. But the Lord Mayor still has to go and swear his allegiance to the Queen, and there's a lot of ceremonials. If you're ever in the city, you might see people walking through the city in a little procession for whatever reason. Might be going to a church service, might be going to Guildhall for a particular reason. And there's a church service at St Paul's Cathedral, which we're all hoping will take place this year, when everybody dresses up in their gowns and their hats and their finery, and it's quite a spectacle. And it was and is something to behold. Actually, going into the cathedral itself is a start, and just to take part in it was very, very special.
And do you know how many livery companies there are?
There are 110 livery companies at the moment in the City of London, and more coming on stream from time to time. There are what they call ancient companies, which is the one I belong to, and there are very modern ones. If you airline pilots, international bankers, there's a Guild of Nurses, which is the one just coming through now and hopes to become a full livery very soon. So it's not all ancient organisations. There are changes going on all the time, and every one of us is there to help other people.
And why did it take so long for there to be a female at the head of it?
Well, that's interesting. If you go back to medieval times, where there was a man running a business, historically ladies outlive men. And if the husband passed away, the woman quite often would carry on running the business. And our company has a record of a lady called Eliza, who became a liveryman, but that was back in the 16th century. And there's still a few in the 17th century, but it died out for some reason. And then obviously in Victorian times, women were supposed to stay at home and look after the menfolk. And it was only after the Second World War that there were discussions on the fact that ladies should be coming back into the livery movement. And the first lady master was appointed in the 80s. And Dame Mary Donaldson was the first lady Lord Mayor of London. And then gradually over time, in the year 2000, my own company started admitting ladies. And then I became the first onto the court, which is the board of directors, in 2011, and the first lady master in 2018. So, there are more and more ladies getting involved. We have 20% in our company now. And when I was master, there were 16 other ladies who were masters at the time. And hopefully the numbers will increase.
And you were lady master just for a year. Is that the sort of tenure that you have?
Yeah.
So during that year, you meanwhile you were retired.
I was, yeah. I had retired, and thankfully I had retired because it was effectively a full-time position. I think I worked out I had just over 150 engagements in the year.
Wow.
Lots of meetings, lots of admin, and then there was the pleasurable side when I was acting as an ambassador for the company, going to lectures and receptions, and I had the honour of going to the garden party at Buckingham Palace, which was meant to be a very splendid occasion, but it was freezing cold, and my silk dress just didn't keep me warm. But it was wonderful just to be able to go there. And there would never be another chance for me to do things like that. And there were also, I think in the course of the year, I think in many respects, it was the people I met that meant a lot to me. There was a lady called Zinnia who won a Youth Build Award, and she'd had a really difficult childhood, decided that she needed to do something with her life and trained up to become a painter and decorator. I met Malala Yousafzai's father at a lecture at one of the girls' schools, and he was just awe-inspiring. He and his wife had tried to set up a school in Pakistan for girls to give them an education, and then obviously we all know what happened to Malala. And yet he was so unassuming, really nice gentleman. And I met another lady who's a lady called Lorraine, whose son had been murdered in Brixton in London. She set up a boxing school for kids to get them off the street. And it's sort of doing things like that. And you suddenly realize to yourself, well, actually, I'm pretty privileged to be able to do these things. So it was a very special year.
Gosh, that must have been absolutely amazing. I heard Malala on Desert Island Discs about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I don't know if you heard it. She was absolutely wonderful. And she talked about her father because he was such an exceptional man in Pakistan. And he was absolutely adamant that his children would be treated no differently from the point of view of education, which was why he supported her so strongly. And of course, she came over and they now live I think they live in Birmingham, and she's just graduated from Oxford. It's an amazing story. That sounds absolutely fantastic. And afterwards, did you just stop? Did it all just
Well, it should have done. Our plan immediately after we finished the year was to go on holiday, just catch up and then do things around the house and then last year have lost lots of holidays, but obviously COVID got in the way of that. But the other thing that happened last year was the clerk, who was the chief executive, became ill, and we thought he'd only be off sick for a month or so, and I was asked if I'd do his job for him, and it turned out that he was far more poorly than we would expected, and so I ended up doing his job for a year. So I was called acting clerk, which was fine. I mean, it was COVID was happening, so it kept me busy. But I always made sure I stopped at 4 o'clock so I could watch afternoon tea at the Ritz, because it was it was like real work again, and I hadn't really expected that. But yeah, since then I've become a trustee of the company's charities. I've taken part in a strategic review. And I know that going forward, I'm going to be working on a charity appeal for the company. So it never stops, but a lot less meetings to go to at the moment.
And looping back to your initial experience in Brazil when you were younger and seeing such poverty, is this so the charitable work that has come out of the work that you've done with the Livery Company? Is that partly why you love being involved with it?
Yeah, I mean, it did have an effect on me. I didn't really think about it at the time, but it was only, the older I got, I realized how fortunate I was. And, I felt it was important to give back in one way or another. And so, yeah, the Livery has a lot of my time, which I think is quite valuable to them. And the charity work that we do is invaluable. I mean, in the pandemic, for example, we've given grants out to a livery kitchen initiative, which is where some of the livery halls open up their kitchens and were cooking for all the NHS staff. We've given charitable grants to a couple of the charities that are helping NHS staff who now have PTSD. And we've also helped out provide some digital equipment for some people who were stuck at home and needed some, laptops, iPads, all that kind of thing, so they could communicate with the rest of the world while they were stuck indoors. So yes, I'm very much involved in charity work.
These livery companies, with all their fantastic history and going back so much, presumably they're quite wealthy.
Some of them are very wealthy. Some of them own quite vast stretches of London, even now. We're not as wealthy as some of them, and we don't. Yeah, so, for example, the Mercer's Company, which is the one that Dick Whittington belonged to, they run a number of schools which support, which kids can go to. So there are a number that are very rich, and at the other end of the scale, there are some who have been very badly hit by the pandemic. The Hackney carriage drivers, for example, for obvious reasons, their members have not been able to work, and they are struggling. But because we're one of the older companies, we have financial resources that have allowed us to keep going. And but yes, there are rich ones and there are poorer ones. That's the way of the world, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the money that gets raised, how does that get raised for the charitable?
We are all expected to make a donation to the company charities. It's whatever you can afford. That then goes into a pot of money, if you like. And then we have investments, and the dividend income plus the donations that come in every year then go straight back out to help other people. And we help various city-based organisations, city schools. We support a young person who's currently at Christ Hospital School in Horsham. We pay for their education. We give prizes to army cadets, and it's quite a lot of money that we give away every year. And we're not the only ones. I mean, we've worked out recently that £60 million a year is given by the livery companies for charitable purposes. Most of it educational, I have to say.
Well, it's amazing. It's like a whole world, isn't it? You know, that you don't know anything about. I mean, I know nothing about this. It's all completely, you know, you've just told me stuff that I really didn't know. And like I said, it's like a whole world, but then it's a world with networks that are doing a huge amount of good. And what I love about it too is the historical aspect of it, because, you know, to keep going for that length of time and to be relevant and to be important in the way that those livery companies and guilds and so on, so forth are. I mean, it's fantastic, isn't it, that it has lasted so long?
Yeah, and also, you know, the movement has evolved over time, and looking ahead, it will be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years as we come out of pandemic. Because I don't know if anybody's been up into the city recently, but it is dead, and there's just nobody there, which is such a shame because it's such a vibrant place. Um, and you know, so and I know that the Lord Mayor and the corporation are looking at ideas on how to bring the city back to life again, but it will not be the same city as it was, well, 18 months ago, unfortunately.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I've been up 2 or 3 times, basically, you know, to have my hair done, and I've been shocked at how deserted it is, but how it's just, it feels like, you know, a balloon that's had all the air let out of it, you know, and you look around and you think this is ridiculous. It's such a vibrant and amazing city, London. It's got so much life and energy, and it's like it's all drained away. I do feel though that surely there is so much, you know, life and energy potentially there to come back. I don't think it'll come back in the same form, but it, you know, some form of it must return. And you know, and once people start to go back to work, which I think they will do, maybe not in the numbers as before, it won't be the same, as I said, but there will be people returning and so on. And I hope so, because it's such a fantastic place. And we are talking about the city of London, which is the square mile, really, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
That part that's called the square mile, that's very, very concentrated in those very historic areas. My daughter bought me for Christmas one year a Samuel Pepys walking tour. So Samuel Pepys 1666, which is the Great Fire of London, which is very much when Samuel Pepys was writing his diaries, and we did a walk all the way around, you know, where he lived and the church that he went to and all that kind of thing. And it is this very, very confined area and space that people and then around that were fields and villages. So
that's right.
Which is quite incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant place to visit. I mean, I miss not going up there. And if you ever get the chance to visit livery halls or the churches up in the city, they are some of them are absolutely stunning. You walk in, you know, through a fairly innocuous door, and you sort of it takes your breath away.
Yeah.
And the first time I went into Mansion House, where the Lord Mayor holds his annual banquet, I sat there and I thought, you know, goodness me, you know, the Chancellor, the Queen, all these kind of people have been in here, and there's little old me. And they're just absolutely beautiful, and the history as well. It's just, it's quite incredible.
Stunning. Well, it sounds fantastic, and it sounds like you had a really amazing year, and what a brilliant thing to be associated with. I just love it. I think it's fantastic. Really, really good. Great story, Lesley. Thank you so much. So, Bryony, shall we come to you? Have you got any questions for?
Yeah, we have had a couple of questions for Lesley. I've got to say, obviously, when I'm saying the questions, I don't really understand them either. So let me just try and word them correctly. So first of all, Rosie would like to know, does your company have influence on building regulations now?
The quick answer to that is no.
Okay.
The people that do are the trade associations. So in the construction industry, there is the one I used to work for, the Town Association. There's one umbrella organisation called Build UK. They are the people who go and lobby government and talk to them about building regs and other technical standards.
Okay, perfect. And then another question from Rosie. Could you become Lord Mayor of London?
I could.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't afford it. At least my husband tells me I can't afford it. The route to becoming Lord Mayor of London is, first of all, you have to be a liveryman.
Right.
Then you have to be elected as an alderman, So if everybody remembers their Dick Whittington pantomimes, there was an alderman, and they represent wards in the city. And then when you become an alderman, you can then go on to become Lord Mayor of London. And the route to that is that you serve your time as an alderman, then you can become sheriff of the city of London, and think, you know, the sheriff of Nottingham and all that kind of stuff. They're really interesting people. They live in the Old Bailey, and the role of the sheriff historically was they used to work on behalf of the king at the time to maintain law and order. So once you become sheriff, you can then go on to become Lord Mayor, and you are elected as Lord Mayor at Common Hall, and I, as a liveryman, can take part in that election.
Okay, thank you. That's very useful. And then a question from Jenny. She said that she lives in York, and within York there are two very old buildings, so the Merchant Taylors Hall and then also the Merchant Adventurers Hall. Would these two halls be part of your organisation?
They are livery halls in the city of York.
Okay.
So I know there's connections. We are connected, but they're part of the livery movement up in York. And I know there's livery buildings in Glasgow and Chester, I think, as well.
Right, okay. And then just finally, not a question, but just a comment from Alison, which I think is a really lovely comment. So Alison has said she belongs to the new company of nurses, and she said that your talk today has been very helpful. So thank you.
Oh, a pleasure.
And that's it from me. Thank you.
And just on, there's a school, isn't there, which is Merchant Taylors?
Yes, there is. There's a number of schools.
And Haberdashers Ask, is that part of the?
Yep.
Would that be an old, livery school to school?
Right. And the Mercers they have a Whittington College down near East Grinstead. So there are a number of schools that are run by livery companies.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. It's like a whole world that you don't know exists, but it's there and it's doing, amazing. And why would you need to be rich to be Lord Mayor?
Well, you have to it does cost a lot of money to be Lord Mayor. I mean, the Lord Mayor's consort, because that's the current word for it, the current Lady Mayoress has to almost wear a different outfit for every occasion. And they have to pay for a number of items. Some of the dinners that are held at Mansion House, the Lord Mayor, with support from his own livery company, pay for the wine, for example. And that he has to pay for his own wonderful gowns and the like, and his chain of office as well. So yes, you need money to be able to do that. So
you wouldn't be able to afford to buy all your husband's clothes that he'd need?
No, let alone mine.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much, Lesley. In my group, everybody really loved your talk and found it fascinating and really, really interesting. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Brilliant to talk to you, and just goes to show the breadth and range of people that we've got in Super Troopers, and I absolutely love it. I really love it. I love talking to the members of Super Troopers on these Tricia talks, and yours has been fascinating. So thank you again. Thanks to everybody for coming and listening, and I look forward to Film Club on Friday. Don't forget, it's Mystify, about Michael Hutchence. It's a really great film, and we'll see you next Tuesday for another live Zoom call. Okay, bye-bye everybody. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.